The era of careful US-India diplomacy has ended abruptly, giving way to a period of open confrontation and uncertainty. For decades, both nations navigated their differences with tact, balancing strategic interests with mutual respect. But now, the rules of engagement have changed overnight. The Trump administration has imposed a sweeping 25% tariff on all Indian goods with plans to double it soon, a move that sent shockwaves through both economies. Indian exporters are scrambling to recalculate costs, while American businesses worry about supply chain disruptions and rising prices. The suddenness of the decision has left little room for negotiation or adjustment, amplifying the sense of crisis. According to the White House, these tariffs are a direct response to India's continued imports of Russian oil, despite mounting Western pressure. Officials argue that this is part of a broader, more aggressive trade stance designed to protect American interests and punish those who defy U.S. policy. The message is clear: economic ties will now be wielded as leverage in global power struggles. President Trump's rhetoric has grown increasingly blunt, dismissing India's economic significance and warning of even harsher measures if New Delhi refuses to fall in line. His public statements have left little doubt about his administration's willingness to escalate, framing the dispute as a test of American resolve. This marks a dramatic rupture in a relationship once celebrated for its shared democratic values and growing economic partnership. What was once a story of collaboration and trust is now overshadowed by threats and economic coercion. The sense of betrayal is palpable on both sides, as years of patient diplomacy unravel in a matter of weeks. The U.S. spent years building the Quad alliance to counter China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific, with India positioned as a cornerstone of this strategy. Now, these aggressive trade policies threaten to undermine that vision, casting doubt on the future of regional cooperation and security. By targeting India, Washington risks creating a strategic vacuum, one that rivals like Russia and China are eager to fill. Already, both nations are reaching out to New Delhi, offering new partnerships and economic incentives. The balance of power in Asia could shift rapidly if India feels pushed away by the US. The notion that India can be strong-armed into abandoning its own interests is a profound miscalculation. India's leaders have made it clear they will not bow to external pressure, and public sentiment is rallying behind a more assertive, independent foreign policy. Protests and political statements signal a new era of self-confidence in New Delhi. Instead of isolating India, these tariffs risk isolating the US from a critical partner at a time when global alliances are more important than ever. As India deepens ties with other nations, American influence in the region could wane, leaving Washington with fewer friends and more challenges. The world is watching closely to see how India will respond, and how that response will reshape the future of Asia. The choices made in the coming months could redefine not just US-India relations, but the entire balance of power across the continent. New Delhi's response is one of fury and betrayal. The Indian government and its citizens feel deeply wronged by the recent actions taken against them. Indian officials call the tariffs unfair, labeling them as a blatant disregard for international trade norms, and a flagrant act of economic aggression. The sentiment on the streets and in the halls of power is one of indignation and resistance. The real anger stems from perceived hypocrisy. While India is punished for buying Russian oil, China, who buys even more, faces no such penalty. This double standard is seen as a direct affront to India's sovereignty and its right to make independent economic decisions. The US is seen as rewarding India's chief rival while punishing a supposed partner, eroding decades of goodwill. This has led to a significant strain in the diplomatic relations between the two nations. India's doctrine of strategic autonomy is under attack, and the tariffs are viewed as an attempt to force subservience. The Indian leadership is determined to resist any such attempts. Prime Minister Modi has vowed not to compromise India's interests, especially for its farmers and industries. He has made it clear that India will not bow to external pressures. This is not just posturing, it reflects a national consensus to stand firm. The Indian populace is united in its resolve to defend the nation's economic and political sovereignty. Instead of compliance, the US has fostered defiance, pushing India to seek new partners who respect its sovereignty. This shift could have long-term implications for global alliances and trade dynamics. The alliance is at its lowest point in decades. The future of US-India relations hangs in the balance, with both nations needing to navigate this crisis carefully to avoid further deterioration. With Washington turning increasingly hostile and unpredictable, India finds itself at a diplomatic crossroads. The once steadfast partnership with the United States is now clouded by uncertainty, trade disputes, and shifting geopolitical priorities. As American rhetoric grows sharper and its foreign policy more erratic, New Delhi is forced to reconsider its strategic options. In response, India is making a bold pivot toward China, its longtime regional rival and competitor. This move marks a significant recalibration of India's foreign policy, signaling a willingness to engage with Beijing despite decades of mistrust and border tensions. Prime Minister Modi's upcoming visit to China for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit is more than just a diplomatic formality. It's a clear signal of a major shift in India's approach to global alliances and regional stability. This recent thaw in relations follows a series of high-level meetings, including a pivotal encounter with President Xi Jinping at the BRICS summit. These engagements have laid the groundwork for a new era of dialogue and cooperation. Both leaders now recognize that cooperation, especially in the face of global uncertainty, is more beneficial than confrontation. With the US's reliability in question, India and China are exploring new avenues for economic and security collaboration. For India, stabilizing its volatile frontier with China is crucial. Avoiding a two-front struggle, one with Pakistan and another with China, gives India the strategic flexibility it needs in a rapidly changing world. By normalizing relations with Beijing, India gains valuable diplomatic breathing room, reduces its vulnerability, and creates space to pursue its own interests without being boxed in by great power rivalry. For China, this rapprochement is a strategic opportunity to weaken the Quad alliance and present the United States as an unreliable partner to the rest of Asia. The shifting relationship between India and China is a direct consequence of American policy, and it is already altering the regional balance of power in Asia. India's pivot is pragmatic, not ideological. It is driven by national interest, security concerns, and the need to adapt to a world where alliances are no longer guaranteed. In the end, the US's unpredictable stance has inadvertently pushed its key partner into the arms of its rivals, reshaping the future of Asian diplomacy and global power dynamics. India and China are backing up diplomacy with real steps, disengaging troops along the Himalayan border and resuming direct flights, and reopening pilgrimage sites in Tibet. Tourist visas are being reissued, reviving people-to-people and business ties. These moves are more than symbolic, they're rebuilding trust and economic links. India's economic slowdown makes deeper trade with China attractive. For China, India's market is a major prize. Both nations face US trade unpredictability, finding common cause in regional partnership. The thaw is driven by shared interests and necessity. India's partnership with Russia, especially in energy and defense, remains unshaken. India imports over a third of its crude oil from Russia, a vital economic lifeline. The US demand to halt these imports is seen as untenable and only strengthens India's resolve. Decades of reliable Russian support, especially in military hardware, reinforce this bond. High-level visits and talks with Moscow are deepening strategic coordination. There's talk of reviving the Russia-India-China Trilateral Forum, creating a powerful bloc. US pressure is ironically driving these three powers closer together. Russia is now a bridge between India and China. US foreign policy experts are alarmed, calling the tariffs a strategic blunder that damages American interests. John Bolton warns the policy risks pushing India into the arms of Russia and China. Analysts say the White House is undoing decades of bipartisan work to build India as a counterweight to China. Alienating New Delhi undermines America's Indo-Pacific strategy. The sudden shift erodes US credibility as a reliable partner. Allies worldwide now question the value of American commitments. Economic pressure won't force India to abandon its strategic autonomy. The tariffs will likely fail, but succeed in driving a wedge between the world's two largest democracies. America's rivals are celebrating this self-inflicted wound. The India-China rapprochement is a tactical alliance, not a deep partnership. Decades of mistrust and unresolved border disputes remain. China's close ties with Pakistan and recent US-Pakistan cooperation add to India's anxiety. India's outreach to China and Russia is driven by necessity, not trust. Expect economic cooperation alongside strategic rivalry. Their partnership is pragmatic and transactional, not visionary. The US faces a weakened position in Asia, but the door isn't closed forever. A future US administration could repair ties with India. For now, Asia's giants are moving closer and the US is on the outside looking in. The balance of power in Asia is shifting, perhaps permanently.